I just couldn't handle it. So about 3 months out from my marriage in November, I found the courage to confront my stepdad one night and gave him 24 hours to leave the house. And I told him, you have 24 hours to leave this house, because if you are here by this time tomorrow, you will be dead, because I will have killed you. And I had the instrument of his death 10 feet away in my bedroom. I had been planning how I was going to handle this for 3 weeks leading up to it. I had this Louisville Slugger bat. It was my favorite bat, used at every picnic. And if he had not left the house within 24 hours, a couple of things were going to happen. Definitely one of the two of us were going to be dead. At the time, like I said, I was 26, 5'8", 5'9", 150 pounds. He's 6'6", 240 pounds. And we met at the top of the stairs when I confronted him. And he was so much bigger than me. I knew going in, there was a good chance that I was going to die when I made that challenge to him. And
or go to prison, I would assume.
Yes. Like I said, you're absolutely correct. A couple of things were going to happen. Either he was going to be dead, and then I was going to jail for murder, for premeditated murder. The crazy part of that is I was not only okay with it, but I knew it was going to be okay because my sisters were going to be protected. It was such short-sighted thinking, because I didn't think, first of all, how it was going to impact my future wife. Never even occurred to me what she was going to experience. And then it never ever occurred to me what damage it was going to do to my sisters, knowing that their brother killed their stepfather, but now he's in jail. And the whole reason why sisters usually don't share with their brothers is for this very fact that if I hadn't said anything, my brother wouldn't have done that, would not have committed that act of murder, and everyone would still be okay. But it never occurred to me that once I killed him, my sisters would feel even worse.
Yeah. It has built up so much in your head. That was the only thing. It didn't matter what happened to you. You were just thinking,
right,
this has to stop.
It has to stop. And this is part of what brothers go through, which I understand is the reason why sisters oftentimes don't tell their brothers, because they know their brothers are going to do something. Yeah. But that's part of the predators. That's part of their wish list. They don't want you to talk. They don't want you to say anything. And so part of the wish list is, this is how I get you to keep your brothers in check. If you say something to them, I will kill them or I will injure them. And so your sister or sisters, in my case, they absorb that emotionally, and they don't want to cause any additional harm to anyone in their family. The other part for the wish list for the predator is that they get to get away and continue doing what they're doing under the cover of, if you say something, I'm going to injure someone else. And so
right, there's always a threat there.
There's always a threat, spoken or implied. There's always the threat. Yeah. And so what you get is an entire family that has been molested, an entire family that has been raped, an entire family that is under stress. Even when you don't know that your sisters have been molested, there are things going on energy-wise in your house that obviously impact you. And in our case, because our mother knew and did nothing, and she's the one who broke the story to us, she allowed him to stay in the house afterward.
Now, I know your mom.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing to me. When you were working as a group, singing group, and do you think that part of this was part of the being in a group was kind of a cover, um, a salve, so that people, they think everything is okay?
Mm-hmm. You're talking about people from the outside?
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
everything looks great, and they don't see the turmoil and the strife you're under,
yes,
the pressure of it.
yes. But it was constantly building. There would be conversations that would take place in our house between my mother and my oldest sister. And not knowing the genesis of the conversation, you just figure, okay, my oldest sister is upset with my mother. What is going on here? And then my oldest sister would start to say, well, this is going on. And my mother started to convince the rest of us, and certainly as boys, that she's just making all this up. And so he becomes part of his protective detail. And because we were singers and we were on the verge of greatness, you start to think, okay, we have been homeless 3 times in the past. There were days when I would have to go into the street of South Central LA, collect bottles and cans and turn them in just so we can get some money to get a pound of ground beef, get a bag of rice. You start to think, I no longer want to live this way. There's an opportunity here. And so that salve that you speak of it encompasses that also. You emotionally and mentally, you say to yourself, okay, we have a way to get out. Can this be mitigated, the damage be mitigated to the point that we can get out of here? The problem with that is, due to my silence, my brothers would need to speak for themselves, but due to my silence, my sisters were sacrificed, because after we left the home that we were living in 71, the acts continued once we moved to another house. And there is no bandage big enough, thick enough, that has enough adhesive that you can't pull that off, because at times you go to bed at night and that bandage or that salve that you're talking about just starts to come off, and you start running things through your head about what you did, what you should have done, how you could have done, why you didn't. Right. And it eats brothers up. I have known and spoken to women whose brothers committed suicide once they found out their sisters were molested. And like me, they did not know a thing. But the weight of it, of telling yourself, how can I not know?
Was there even a sense of it at all, or is just not at all, nothing?
No. And what made it okay is the people who you depend on to bring you the information, to help you, to protect you. Those people who you sign your parent-child contract with when you're born, which is what I call it. There's a chapter in the book called The Parent-Child Contract. And that's when your child is born and you see your child for the very first time, and you lock eyes on your brand new child, no matter if it's child number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as in our case. You look at that baby and you say, oh my God, this is divine love. This is divine happiness here. I will protect you forever. I will put my life on the line for you forever. And that contract cannot be broken, except it can. My stepfather is not my biological father, but my mother. She broke the contract multiple times. And so you end up sacrificing your children, which was the case for us. We were sacrificed over and over again. And you start to look at that as a brother. And as I said, you're talking about this salve or this bandage that you're trying to protect yourself from the heat that's coming in. from what you did or didn't do, it's not big enough, it's not thick enough, and there's not enough to keep that bandage on you. It will peel back. And it peeled back on me many, many nights and many, many days.
So what was going on at that time? Nobody, you individually none of you knew, you kept it to yourself. You didn't know the same thing was going on with your other sister and so forth and so on. So you were like separate entities who didn't know the same things they were going through the same molestation and tough time like that.
Yeah. Man. We fragmented emotionally. When you asked what was going on, once we found out, we broke apart. All this knowledge came to light in a 10-minute span. And
all those years in a 10-minute span.
Yeah. On a 10-minute span in a house on 12th Avenue in Los Angeles. And what I call 4 emotional earthquakes slammed into us boys, because we were called into the living room for what we thought was a meeting to say, we're getting ready to sign this contract with this recording company. We had arrived. As I like to say, the bus was outside the house, the engine was on. All we had to do was walk out, step up, grab our seat, and our bus was gone. We were ready, we were gone. And in a 10-minute span, we learned that my stepfather molested my 2 oldest sisters. Our mother knew something that my older brother did that just kind of rocked everyone. And then the 4th earthquake for me was when my oldest sister spun around and pointed to us boys and said, you cannot tell anyone about this, ever. It did not happen to you. It only happened to us girls. You cannot speak about it. And then it all broke apart. Now, for my oldest sister, I understand why she did what she did. I completely get it. She's trying to protect herself. My second sister and the 2 youngest, who at the time we did not realize he had gotten to them also. But when she spun around on us and told us, boys, you can't say anything, because our mother had already told us, this does not leave these 4 walls. But when my oldest sister spun around, she didn't realize that she had just locked her brothers down, because the people, as I said, we needed to speak to just told us it didn't happen to you. But of course it did. We were indirect victims of molestation and rape in our family. And now that we knew, we had been emotionally and mentally molested. So it happened to all of us. The crazy part about it is 6 years before we learned about it in 1966, my older brother and I, we were molested by our babysitter on almost a daily basis for 6 months.
Oh my God.
Our mother knew because we told her. So it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I learned my 2 youngest sisters, the twins, the youngest in the family, they were molested by our stepdad. What is also crazy about that is my 2 oldest sisters who were protecting them, they had no idea they were molested until about 5 or 6 years ago. They had no idea, their 2 youngest sisters. So here I am putting this guy out of the house, ready to commit murder, to get him away from my 2 oldest sisters and protect my 2 youngest sisters, and he had already beaten me to them. He had already gotten to them. One night about 6 years ago, my wife and I, we were in bed, and she says to me, you know you're a victim of what happened. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, well, of course you are. What are you talking about? I said, I'm not a victim. It didn't happen to me. She said, it did. It happened to all you boys. What are you talking about? You are a victim of what happened. And Gene, I got to tell you, I went about 40 years not even looking at it like that. And then it hit me.
Never occurred to you. Yeah.
Never occurred. And every brother, once they learn their sisters have been molested, you have been brought into a fraternity that very few people talk about. You are part of the brothers fraternity whose sisters have been molested, and now you have to carry it in silence. As you had mentioned earlier, I'm tight with my brothers and sisters. That is not true. I only speak to about half my brothers and sisters right now. My two youngest brothers, they're out doing their thing, trying to find their way like we all are. I have a sister who's out doing her thing and just trying to find her way. We're all trying to find our way. We're all trying to figure out what's going on. Luckily for me, the day finally arrived of retribution 2 years ago, when I was able to track down my stepdad at a church in Van Nuys.
Wow.
And
so how long did that take to do? You had no contact.
No.
After
you're absolutely
with a baseball bat after that.
I had absolutely no contact. Multiple times during the time that he left the house, my mother brought him back around, or she had relationships with him. So every time my mother did that, she abandoned her children. He ended up being at my wedding because at the time, and I will answer your question, but I think this is important. At the time, I was trying to make the relationship with my mother good. So right before my wedding, I went to her and said, okay, look, I understand how important image is to you. Understand I do not want him at the wedding. And this is me giving an olive branch, saying, okay, we're going to be able to move forward after this because I know what your answer is going to be. And so I said, okay, if you want to invite him, you can, but understand I do not want him there. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a grand gesture on my part because I know she's going to say no. A couple of days go by and I ask her, so what's your answer? And she said, well, baby. And I knew what was coming next. You don't say, well, baby, which, by the way, happened to be his nickname, Baby.
Oh, goodness.
She said, well, I've decided to invite him. And I said, what? You know I don't want him. But she invited him. That having him at our wedding is the only regret in my life. Because to me, I put my sisters back in harm's way in an effort to try to make things okay with my mother. So you've got this 45 years or so that go by. And as a brother, we never spoke to our sisters about it, and they've never broached the subject with us. But every now and then, something would come up in conversation, and you just pull back. You say, no, I can't talk about that now. Now is not a good time.
Right. The pain.
The pain,
I'm sure,
is tremendous. So in 2019, in January of 2019, to answer your question, when you are a sexual predator and you have not been confronted, you have not been brought to heel, you have not been put down, you continue as though you get to ride off into the sunset. We see it all the time. We see it in politics. We see it with religious leaders. We see it with this guy in the White House right now. I can do whatever I want to do. Even his Access Hollywood tape. I can molest any woman I want because I'm a celebrity and no one's going to do a damn thing about it. And so it continues.
Right.
So my stepdad, turns out he had a Facebook page.
Oh my goodness. A Facebook page.
You are an admitted sexual predator. You raped my sisters. I come to find out you raped a sister or two along the way. You didn't just molest them. He had a Facebook page. And so from time to time, I'd go check to see if he's going to do what I would say, come up for air, let me know where he's at.
So you were doing that intentionally?
Yeah.
You were looking intentionally?
The only way I could complete this book is if that confrontation took place.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I cannot talk about being helpless, because here we are traumatized for 40 something years. We are helpless. We are at his mercy emotionally. I've got children, I'm married, my sisters have children, they're married, but we are still locked in the clutches because there has not been closure. He has not been confronted. And so I looked for him. And I decided to see if he had a Facebook page. Damn, did he have a Facebook page?
What was that moment like?